Sekarang ni mungkin episode terakhir.
Gets lost in thought as he wonders if everything was really just a prank like she said. Had she really come all this way just to tease him? As his thoughts swirl in a tumultuous sea, a text message notification interrupts his musings. The message, sent by Minase, reveals that she forgot her umbrella at his place, and she informs him that she'll come back next Friday night to come pick it up. Riku slams his hand on the table and yells out Minase's name. Yet again, it proves to be nothing more than a vivid dream, an agonizing recurrence of his own humiliation before the entire class. His gaze shifts towards Minase, and she responds with a serene smile. In the days that follow, Riku deliberately avoids Minase and retreats away whenever Minase approaches him. It's not that he suddenly disliked her. Rather, he felt disappointed in himself for harboring desires towards his best friend's girlfriend. Yet the more he tries to push her from his thoughts, the more she lingers in his mind. Finally, as Riku heads home after school on a Friday afternoon, Minase confronts him with an angry look on her face. Riku attempts to quickly run away, but she firmly grasps his arm, demanding an explanation for why he's constantly running away from her. Riku claims to fear that she might do something weird again. However, Minase insists that she is only here to retrieve her umbrella. Reluctantly, Riku relents, and they walk together in the direction of his home, her hands gripping his arm while they do. Riku implores her to let go, but she grasps his arms even tighter, claiming that he might try to run away if she does. Riku gets wary that Serrano might misunderstand what's going on if he were to see them. However, Minase dismisses his concerns. She instead intertwines her fingers with his, refusing to let go. Riku finds himself immersed in a sea of confusion, unsure of Minase's true intentions, and if this was really all just a joke to her. Upon reaching his house, Riku asks Minase to wait outside while he retrieves her umbrella. Yet, to his surprise, she silently follows him inside, locking the door behind them as she does. With a flirtatious smile on her face, she remarks that a week has passed since their last encounter, and that Riku's parents appear to be absent once again. Riku mumbles an acknowledgement. Minase crouches down beside him, mentioning how he has allowed her back into his home, despite what happened last time. She then bluntly questions why he has been avoiding her the past few days. He attempts to deny her accusations, but she calls him a liar. Then, a hint of shyness emerges within Minase as she gazes at Riku and asks if he wishes to resume from where they left off. Nervously averting his gaze, Riku struggles to suppress his desires, unable to deny that is exactly what he wants. Minase places her hand upon his shoulder, inching closer. Riku shuts his eyes tight in anticipation of a kiss. However, Minase abruptly gets up. A swift shift in tone and demeanor follows as she declares that nothing will happen between them today, as she had merely come to retrieve her umbrella. As Minase turns towards the door, Riku urgently reaches for her hand and stops her from leaving. Riku accidentally grabs Minase's hands a little too firmly, and she recoils. After a moment of awkward silence, he offers to walk Minase home. She holds onto his arms while they walk outside. Riku brings up the previous night's incident, cautiously advising her to refrain from making such provocative remarks lightly. Minase tightens her grasp on his arms and asserts that she has never spoken that way to anyone except him. Another uncomfortable silence follows. When Riku mentions Serrano's name, Minase swiftly changes the subject, playfully calling him out for shaming her just before. Riku apologizes for his insensitivity. In response, Minase offers forgiveness on the condition that he fulfills her request. Leaning in closer, she reveals that she wants to stay over at his house the next time. The following day in class, Riku invites Serrano to his place, pretending that it was Minase's idea. He fabricates a story, claiming that Minase wanted to surprise Serrano and didn't want Riku to mention her visit. However, he suggests that Serrano should arrive earlier than Minase so they can surprise her instead. When Minase arrives at Riku's place, expecting a private meeting with him, she is taken aback by Serrano's presence. She pulls Riku aside and demands an explanation. Riku explains that he didn't explicitly promise not to invite Serrano when he agreed to her request. To his relief, Minase accepts his reasoning, but then, with a mischievous smile, she turns around and suggests they can still do things even with Serrano around. When the three of them reunite, they decide to revisit an old storage space they used to call their secret base from their childhood. To evoke more nostalgic memories, Serrano proposes playing hide and seek. Riku plays it first, and just like when they were younger, he quickly finds Serrano. After reminiscing for a moment, Serrano asks if Riku is keeping something from him, catching him off guard.
Oh.
Riku becomes slightly flustered, but pretends everything is fine.
Creeper old man. Creeper old man.
However, Serrano simply snatches a snack from Riku's pocket and munches on it. After a short break, the two of them make a bet on who can find Minase first. They split up, and Riku heads to Minase's usual hiding spot. Suddenly, someone pulls him from behind.
Creeper,
Riku stumbles
creeper.
backward, landing on Minase's lap. She grins widely. Riku's heart races at her adorable smile, but he suppresses his emotions and quickly moves away from her. Then, they make a wager on whether Serrano will be able to find them. They wait together in silence under the dim evening sky. An alluring silence ensues, and Riku starts regretting their bet, as Minase's captivating scent makes it harder for him to maintain his composure. Suddenly, Minase complains about a bug bite. Riku searches his pockets for medicine, and Minase lifts her sweater, asking him to apply it to her back as she claims she can't reach it herself. Afterwards, she playfully asks him to put it on her front as well. As they bicker back and forth, a large bug lands on Minase's back, causing her to panic and leading them into an awkward position.
Oh.
Before they can move, they hear Serrano's voice nearby. Although the bug flies away, Riku and Minase stay frozen, fearing that Serrano might overhear them. Riku averts his gaze from Minase, attempting to calm his racing heart. Sensing his unease, Minase leans closer to his ear. She teases him, asking if his increased heartbeat is because of her. Riku indirectly admits it, but she persistently urges him to admit it properly, that it was because of her. Shyly, he mutters a few excuses before finally confessing that his heart was beating faster because of her. Minase smiles warmly upon hearing his admission. Leaning closer to his heart, she remarks that he has never made any advances towards her, so she thought he was never interested in her. As Minase leans in even closer to Riku, they suddenly hear Serrano's voice close by. They overhear Serrano murmuring to himself that Minase has been acting distant from her since that day. After they hear Serrano walk in a different direction, Riku suggests they stand up and leave. In response, Minase apologizes and Minase abruptly runs away, and after a brief moment of silence, Riku shouts out loud. Serrano rushes over to him and asks if he's okay. Meanwhile, Minase runs until she's out of breath. As she recalls what had just happened, she regrets that if she was going to do it anyways, she should have done it sooner. Later, in the quiet of the night, Riku awakens to find Serrano fast asleep. As he gazes at his slumbering friend, Riku contemplates the guilt he feels for betraying Serrano. He decides that he mustn't continue down this regretful path. Leaving the room, he notices Minase sitting alone outside. She apologizes for borrowing his sweater without permission, and playfully offers to return it unwashed if he desires. After a brief silence, Riku brings up their recent encounter. Minase asks if he was caught off guard, to which he answers it did. She smiles and considers her prank a success. Then, Minase daringly asks if he wants to repeat what they did now. Riku vehemently shouts at her to stop, and warns that any further actions between them will jeopardize their relationship with
Alamak.
Serrano. With a sad smile, Minase and Serrano leave in the morning. Riku is left by himself, pondering about Minase's true intentions. Was it really all just to tease him? Or could she possibly be using him for revenge against Serrano? While lost in his thoughts, Riku's contemplation is interrupted by the sudden presence of an unfamiliar girl. She trips and falls on top of him, which jolts back his memory. It was Inami, his junior from middle school, whom he hadn't seen in 2 years since she moved away. Inami reveals that her family has returned, and she was looking forward to reconnecting with him. The following day at school, Inami appears in Riku's classroom and insists that he show her around the school. Whispers spread throughout the classroom as his classmates wonder who the girl is. As Riku and Inami depart, Minase watches them with a mix of concern and jealousy. Inami notices Minase's gaze and briefly glances back at her before leaving with Riku. After a brief tour of the school, Inami asks if the blonde girl in Riku's class is Minase. When Riku inquires if the two know each other, Inami explains that she has only seen Minase from a distance. Inami comments on Minase, saying that she is as beautiful as ever. In a flirting manner, she then asks Riku about her own appearance. Suddenly, Serrano and Minase appear in front of them. Serrano wears a surprised expression, and Inami drops her drink in shock. Before Serrano can utter a word, Inami grabs Riku's hand and swiftly pulls him away. Once they stop, Riku demands an explanation for their sudden escape. Inami turns around, tears welling in her eyes, and embraces him. Inami reveals that she and Serrano dated for a few months before, but he abruptly broke up with her. Meanwhile, Minase looks around for Riku with his drink in her hand. When she finally spots him, she sees him together with Inami, seemingly embracing each other. Overwhelmed with shock, Minase quietly walks away. Inami continues to share her story, revealing how she unintentionally started dating Serrano. She had always harbored feelings for Riku during their middle school days. As Riku often spoke about Serrano, Inami naturally became curious about him. One day, while attempting to spy on Serrano, Inami stumbled and fell in front of him. In an attempt to say something out of the awkwardness, Inami ended up blurting out a confession by mistake, leading to their unexpected relationship. However, Serrano eventually confessed that he had feelings for someone else, bringing their relationship to an end. Riku questions why Inami never
Kita buat ni
mentioned this to him. She
Roda
explains
aku
that
dia
Serrano
banyak
had
ni
asked her
aku
to
nak
keep it a
buat.
secret from Riku. Riku ponders Serrano's intentions. In an attempt to comfort Inami, he tells her that she is attractive and capable of making anyone fall for her. Inami playfully asks if that includes Riku, causing him to become flustered. She then thanks Riku for making her feel better and heads off to class. Riku remains seated alone, contemplating out loud whether he should skip his next class. So much had transpired over the last few days. Suddenly, Minase appears beside him and offers to skip class with him. Surprised by her presence, Riku asks why she is there. Minase explains that she came to return his drink and questions whether her presence bothers him. He quietly murmurs that it doesn't. After a moment of silence, Minase considers asking if he was kissing Inami, but doesn't finish her sentence. They engage in a brief and trivial conversation about the temperature of his drink. Then, unexpectedly, Minase locks eyes with Riku and apologizes before leaning in to kiss him. He pushes her away and asks why she did that. Minase tells him that he can stop her anytime if he doesn't like it. They share a brief moment of embrace again, aware that someone else is recording them on their phone. After returning to her classroom, Inami realizes she accidentally took Riku's handkerchief with her. She quickly retraces her steps to where they were before, and unexpectedly finds Riku and Minase together. Overwhelmed with emotions, Inami collapses to the ground in tears. A sudden phone noise startles Riku and Minase. Riku recognizes Inami's clothes and calls out to her as she flees. He attempts to chase after her, but Minase grabs his arm, questioning what he plans to say to Inami. Temptingly, she urges him to stay, but this time Riku pushes her away. Minase appears saddened by his demeanor. However, he admits the truth about his feelings for her, but says he still wants Serrano and the two of them to remain best friends. Riku then leaves Minase behind as he rushes after Inami. Left alone, Minase whispers to herself that she should put in more effort. When Riku finally catches up to Inami, she seems composed and unaffected. Riku breathes a sigh of relief, assuming that she is unaware of what transpired between him and Minase. However, Inami soon confronts Riku, questioning his understanding of boundaries within friendships. He tries to feign ignorance. Inami then suggests that if he doesn't maintain boundaries within friendships, he wouldn't find the need to keep boundaries between seniors and juniors as well. She leans in closer and asks if that's true. However, Riku prevents her from coming closer just in time. Inami calls him a liar and says she was merely testing him. She shows him the video she recorded earlier and demands a thorough explanation, starting from the beginning to the end. Riku confesses everything that has transpired between him and Minase up to that point. As Inami ponders Minase's intentions, she asks Riku what he wants to do. He shyly looks away and claims he wants to remain friends with Minase. If that was true, Inami questions why Riku refers to Minase by her last name, when they have been friends for a long time and used to address her by her first name. Riku explains that it was out of respect towards Serrano, ever since he began dating Minase. However, Inami unexpectedly shifts gears and initiates a therapy session, suggesting that Riku's choice of addressing her by her last name may be a way of suppressing his own feelings for her. Riku is left speechless, unable to deny the possibility. Then Inami requests a favor from Riku. She asks him to join the school's sports festival committee and convince Minase and Serrano to participate as well. When Riku asks for the reason behind this request, Inami claims it's for her to get closer to Serrano. She also states that Riku can use the opportunity to win Minase over. Initially, Riku tries to dismiss the idea, but Inami quickly retaliates by threatening to expose their secret. A couple of weeks later, Riku finds himself alone, tidying up the gym equipment as a member of the sports festival committee. Just as he finishes, heavy rain begins to pour, forcing him back into the equipment room for shelter. The rain shows no signs of stopping, and Riku starts sneezing from the cold. As he looks for something to keep himself warm, Riku hears the sound of the door locking behind him. He turns around, only to discover Minase standing near the door, playfully commenting that it's just the two of them in the room. She grins mischievously and begins walking towards him. Riku, feeling flustered, hastily tells her to stop, but Minase continues her approach until she's standing right in front of him. She then teasingly hands him an umbrella and says they should leave. The two make an attempt to leave the room, but the key snaps in the lock, leaving them actually locked inside. Furthermore, neither of them has their phones with them. As time passes, Riku starts shivering once more, his t-shirt still drenched from the rain. Minase tells him not to turn around and takes her jacket off. She then offers him her t-shirt. She stares at him with anticipation to watch him change, and to enjoy embarrassing him. Riku turns around to take off his shirt, and she notices that his back has gotten bigger. Minase recalls how when they were young, Riku was unable to give her a piggyback ride while Serrano could.
Aduh.
Embarrassed, Riku confesses that he has been training a bit since then. In response, Minase hugs him from behind and playfully asks if he can carry her now. Initially flustered, Riku jokes that she has gotten heavier since then too, so he's not entirely certain. In retaliation, she strangles him from behind. Then, while still embracing him, she asks Riku to call her by her first name. Apparently, this was the agreement they made when Minase agreed to join the sports festival committee, and Riku had yet to fulfill his end of the deal. Meanwhile, Inami grows increasingly concerned over Riku as she repeatedly tries to call him, but he doesn't answer. When her call is finally picked up, Serrano answers the phone instead. Serrano explains that he found Riku's bag and phone left behind in his classroom, so the two decide to meet up, in order to find Riku together. As they walk side by side, Inami's nerves begin to get the better of her, causing her to question if she still has lingering feelings for Serrano. Strangely, she realizes that she didn't feel as nervous when talking to Riku. Lost in her thoughts, Inami fails to hear Serrano speaking to her initially. When she apologizes and asks him to repeat what he said, Serrano says he was complimenting her looks, that she's become a lot cuter. Inami questions why Serrano dated her back in middle school, especially since she didn't consider herself particularly attractive at the time. Serrano says that he wanted to fall in love with someone else. Inami asks what he means, and Serrano smiles, claiming that she should understand what he means since she was the same as him, implying that she wanted to fall in love with someone else too. Before Inami can respond, however, their attention is abruptly diverted as they reach the location where Riku was supposed to be. As Minase insists that Riku calls her by her first name, he finds himself contemplating the situation, recalling Inami's words about his avoidance and suppression of his feelings. With a quiet voice, he finally utters her name. In an instant, a rush of suppressed memories floods back, causing Minase's eyes to well up with tears. She requests that Riku say her name again, this time in a louder voice. Shyly, he repeats her name over and over. Minase begins to confess something to Riku. However, their moment is abruptly interrupted as the door swings open, revealing a bright flashlight shining upon them.
Tobacco.
Teacher who had arrived to collect some gym equipment. The teacher gently admonishes them for engaging in such behavior at school, reminding them to refrain from it in the future. The following day, Riku finds himself bedridden with a cold. Even in his tired state, his mind continues to ponder what Minase was about to reveal to him the day before. and what might have happened between them had they not been interrupted. His imagination wanders freely for a while, weaving various scenarios in his mind. When he finally opens his eyes, he sees Serrano standing by his bedside, looking down at him. Serrano apologizes for startling him, and reveals that he's brought Riku's favorite snacks in the hopes of making him feel better soon. Soon after, Riku drifts back to sleep. He awakens after some time with a lingering face. Upon learning that Riku was absent from school due to a fever, Inami decided to visit him as well, bringing along some food. When she arrives at his bedroom, she finds Riku fast asleep. Inami notices another grocery bag next to his bed, piquing her curiosity about who else might have visited him. She thinks that it was perhaps Serrano, or possibly Minase. As Inami contemplates her own feelings, she briefly considers kissing Riku, but she restrains herself, afraid of potentially jeopardizing their relationship. So instead she quietly embraces him, causing Riku to unknowingly turn in his sleep, resulting in a gentle peck on his cheek. Yet another uninvited visitor comes to Riku's place. However, on her way to enter Riku's room, she bumps into Inami in the hallway. The two recognize each other and decide to have tea together. The two share stories about Riku, about his little quirks and the things he likes. Inami, who initially held a negative perception of Minase, begins to realize that Minase isn't just pretty, but also kind and easy to talk to. The realization makes Inami wonder more why someone like her would cheat on Serrano. But before she can confront her and ask about their situation, shirtless Riku emerges from his bedroom, unexpectedly and comedically breaking the tension. Later, when the four of them get together, the girls tease shirtless Riku. All the attention gets turned
bunuh ka man ni.
to feel left out. Eventually, he excuses himself, abruptly mentioning that he's got some things to do. He seemingly looks over to Minase. She lets go of Riku's arm and suddenly says she has to leave too. Riku sees her embrace Serrano's arms and his heart begins thumping loudly, as if to protest over what he's seeing. Riku looks on as the two disappear out of sight, and he grips his chest tightly. Confusion sets in as Riku wonders why all of a sudden it hurts so much to see Minase and Serrano together, when it had been over a year since the two began dating. Until the next morning, Riku finds himself unable to stop thinking about Minase. His preoccupation with her becomes so consuming that he accidentally spills miso soup on his school uniform. His mom scolds him for his absent-mindedness, noticing how he has been bumping into things and stumbling on the stairs since the previous day. As Riku heads to the bathroom to clean his clothes, his dad unexpectedly appears to offer his assistance. Playfully, his dad asks if Riku is having girl problems. Flustered, Riku attempts to deny it. His dad asks if the girl he likes is Minase. Riku tries to deny it again, claiming that she's Serrano's girlfriend. In response, his dad shares a piece of advice, mentioning that when it comes to love, it can be challenging to determine what is right or wrong. However, he urges Riku not to leave any regrets behind. Before leaving, Riku's dad hands him something, intending to ensure that his son won't make any mistakes if the time comes. Later in class, Riku notices that his heart doesn't react as intensely as before when he sees Minase. He begins to entertain the thought that perhaps things can return to normal. That thought is short-lived, as the teacher announces that Riku and Minase will represent their class by participating in a three-legged race at the sports festival. And so the two decide to practice after school. Despite their practice session, their coordination doesn't seem to improve all that much. Minase suggests that Riku should put in more effort and properly grab her waist for better balance. As they prepare to try again, Riku's thoughts start to wander, fixating on Minase's slender figure. His gaze gets fixated on her, eventually causing them to stumble once more. They decide to pause for a break. Minase expresses feeling cold, prompting Riku to offer his school uniform, although he worries it might still carry the scent of miso soup from earlier in the day. However, Minase assures him that his shirt carries nothing but her favorite scent. Seeing her smile, Riku's chest tightens once again. He quickly comes up with an excuse and flees from the scene before he makes another mistake. In his haste, something falls from his pocket, catching Minase's attention. She picks it up and briefly wonders if it was meant for Inami, but thinks it can't be. With a faint smile, she tucks it into her own pocket. Away from Minase, Riku feels lost as to what to do about her. Each passing day only seemed to intensify his emotions. Minase suddenly appears before him and says they should head home now. For the fault of leaving her alone in the park at night, Minase suggests he should walk her home. Riku agrees to do so, and of course, it begins pouring rain. By the time they arrive at her place, both of them are thoroughly drenched. As Riku turns to take his leave, Minase stops him. She suggests he should come in, otherwise he might catch a cold. He was supposed to distance himself from her and simply practice for the upcoming sports festival. Yet here he was again, in another precarious situation, teetering on the fragile boundaries of their friendship. He stands beneath the shower's warm stream in her bathroom, until Minase's voice breaks the silence from outside. She informs him that she has left his dry clothes outside, and asks if he knows where the shampoo is. As Riku searches for it, Minase enters the bathroom to show it to him personally. Initially, he frantically urges her to leave, but as he always does, he eventually and quickly gives in. He ends up putting on a blindfold and scrubbing her back, which inadvertently heightens his other senses more. Afterwards, Riku runs out of the bathroom claiming he can't handle it any longer. While leaving the bathroom, Riku steps on something. When Minase emerges from the bathroom, she notices Riku standing motionless. Suddenly, Riku firmly grabs her shoulder and turns her around. His gaze fixates on the red mark on her neck. A flicker of anger briefly crosses his face, then he darkens the mark with his own mouth. As she gets taken back by his sudden boldness, Riku confronts Minase about the item he discovered on her floor. He appears disappointed, yet acknowledges that it should not be his concern. However,
Aduh,
he
jam
must
dah.
stop playing with his emotions, or else things can never return back to the way they were. Minase embraces him and says she doesn't want things to be the same as before. She says she wants him to be her first. Riku tells her to stop messing with him, but she reassures him that she really means what she says. Minase acknowledges her recent behavior has been strange around Riku. While she is aware of it, she says she cannot explain everything to him just yet. Riku pleads with her to clarify, but Minase can only apologize again, acknowledging the unfairness of the situation. However, she asserts that she has never lied to him, and everything she has said to him has been true. Minase then lies down on the sofa, provocatively suggesting that she is ready for him at any time. Even right this moment, Riku inches closer, and Minase closes her eyes in anticipation. However, Riku unexpectedly retrieves the keys from the table and departs without looking back. He declares that even if he has wronged Serrano, the friendship between the three of them remains important to him. Riku states that he will wait until Minase is ready to share everything with him. As Riku departs, he addresses her by her first name and bids her good night. Minase lies back down on the couch, her eyes welling up with tears as she considers herself a bad person. But she remains unconvinced about how he would react if she were to confess the truth to him.
Dia dah.
Here's the almond rice for
Aduh.
table number 5. Hi, my name is Ken Honda. I'm just your average, nerdy 20-year-old college student. My family runs a privately owned Western-style restaurant. So, after I finish attending my lectures
Aku nak
at the
tukar.
university, I usually work in the kitchen and also as a waiter in the hall.
Kent, could you please take care of the dining hall? I'm going to take care of the kitchen with your father since we need it for tomorrow's preparation.
Alam.
Well then, I'll go to the dining hall. Well, it's great that I've been appointed to this job, but what should I do to kill the time? It usually gets so boring at this hour of the day since there's
Sebenarnya tak ada
barely
kot banyak-banyak kan.
customers coming here.
I'm Ken. Hello there.
Welcome
Biasanya
home,
kita,
Ed.
aku
Welcome, your friend.
tak ada apa kot.
It's good to see you today.
The noisy
Kita
one.